could allow me, I just want to briefly go through further information about each of the panelists. Ms. Corpus Campbell has extensive experience working across the public, private, philanthropic, and community sectors in Australia and the Indo-Pacific. She has served as head of Australia's bilateral aid programs with Papua New Guinea, Fiji, and Tuvalu, and head of Australia's Pacific regional programs. Ms. Corpus Campbell has worked in senior executive roles with CARE Australia and the Oil States Foundation. She is a founding director on the Family PNG board that provides services to survivors of family and sexual violence, and the PNG City Pharmacy Limited board. From 2018 to 2023, she was chair of the Southern Highlands Provincial Health Authority Board, the third largest province in Papua New Guinea. Stephanie holds a Master of Philosophy from Cambridge University in the UK in International Relations and a bachelor's degree from the University of California in Political Science, where she graduated. She is currently undertaking a Master's of Social Work through the University of Melbourne. She is a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. She volunteers in palliative care of Clare Holland House Hospice and is a wildlife carer and rescuer to ACT Wildlife. Our second panelist is Honourable Kathy Norrie. As I've mentioned earlier, she is currently the Member of Parliament for Maringe Kokota constituency in Isabel. She is the first ever female to be appointed as Deputy Chair of Caucus. Prior to becoming a Member of Parliament, she was the Managing Director of Nofokava Transportation and Logistics. And I forgot to ask her if she is still holding the same position. Ms. Lanel Tanangada, she was a secondary teacher before she became a politician. She was the first female from the Western Province of Solomon Islands to be elected into Parliament. She was the former Minister for Women, Youth and Children Affairs. She was also former Minister for Police, Security and Correctional Services, and she later became Minister for Education and Human Resources Development under the DCGA government until the conclusion of the national general election in April this year. I was going to say last year, but it was this year. So can we please give a welcome our three distinguished panelists with a big round of applause. Thank you, everyone. So as we gather here today, we must recognize the immense relevance of gender equality in relation to women representation in leadership roles and positions in the government, non-government organizations, and private sector, and also within our communities. Women's equal representation and participation in politics and public life is essential for democracy. So we need to ask ourselves some critical questions as we ponder on the topic. Yeah, and one of the key questions is, why is women's participation in leadership roles important? Why? Why women? I'm not going to say anything because we'll have the three panelists to tell us the answer to that question. So I believe our three panelists will provide some insights during the panel discussions that will help shed light on this question and other questions that you might have. I wish to encourage all of you present here today or present online, listening in online, to share your thoughts, ask questions, and contribute to a rich conversation that will enhance our collective understanding of the vital benefits women's participation in political leadership in a democratic society means. As we explore the challenges and opportunities for women's participation in politics and leadership roles in general, let us remember that our voices do matter in shaping the narrative around us. Once again, welcome, and let us look forward to an engaging and enlightening session with our three. Each of you will be given 10 minutes to speak, and we have a timekeeper, Marilyn. Yeah, she has. Can you just show us the orange one? Then that means you have 2 minutes to go. And if she shows the red, that means your time is up and you have to wrap up. So that's how we manage the time for this afternoon. And after the three panelists have spoken, then we will open up time for question and answers. Is that okay with everyone? Yeah. Thank you very much. You were such a very good audience, very patient and understanding. Okay, so now let's begin with our first presentation. I will now invite Ambassador Stephanie to make her remarks.
Stand up? Do you want to sit down or stand up when we give our remarks? Stand up? Okay. So, hello. It's so incredibly wonderful to be here, and of course to be in the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Solomon Islands. It's my 6th trip to your country over many years, and I'm just delighted to be back again, and to also get out to the province yesterday, which of course was exquisite and wonderful. I am delighted to share the stage with three, if we count our incredible moderator, amazing women, and to speak with all of you today. I'm going to say all protocols observed because there's so many important people in the room and online. I come to you today also with many hats on. I come to you as a woman who has been on a long leadership journey and has experienced barriers that many other women have experienced, and I'll speak about that in a moment. I come to you as someone who's worked across many different sectors, the public sector, the NGO sector, the private sector, and I'll give my remarks from that perspective as well. And I come to you as Australia's ambassador for gender equality. I am Australia's lead international advocate for gender equality. And I'll share with you just what we're seeing globally around the world and where there are many, many synergies. So let me start with that first really important point that our moderator raised. Why is this important? What is the why? And the why is really as simple as this. When every person can contribute, we're just better off. And when we have a diversity of lived experience and opinions and views and ideas and brain power at the table, we're better off. It's really that simple. Let me give you just a few examples from my personal experience. I was, earlier this year, going out for a run in Melbourne, which is a city in Australia that is close to where I live, but where I'm not from. So because I wasn't from there, I just asked a male colleague of mine who lived there, is it safe for me to go out in the morning before light and go for a run? He said, oh, no problem. He said, I run every single day down this path to the botanical gardens. You won't have a problem whatsoever. So with his word, I laced my shoes up in the morning, out I go for a run. I run past the casino, and guess what happened? 3 guys coming out of the casino, drunk, started catcalling me, started chasing me, being really obnoxious and quite scary. And so I ran back to the hotel, and during morning tea, I found this guy, and I said, you know what? You had perfect intentions of keeping me safe. You didn't want any harm to come to me. But your lived experience as a man is very different to mine as a woman. And therefore, if you are the only one at any table, and those like you, you're going to get it wrong for half the population. I need to be at that table with my lived experience and representing others' lived experience, whether it's the parliamentary table or the business table or the community table, etc., so that we have a healthier society. Let me give you a second quick example because I think this is really, really important to get to the why. I worked when I was in Papua New Guinea, 25 years in Papua New Guinea, but I worked in a very remote part of PNG called Hela Province, if any of you know PNG. And we had so much tribal fighting in Hela Province, so much. And every peace negotiation, the men would come to the table and they'd trade in pigs, and they'd trade in money, and they'd trade in guns and compensation and whatnot. And shortly after, they'd leave that table and they're fighting again. We finally convinced leaders to bring some of the women to the table to hear their voice, their lived experience. So when the women came, what did they talk about? They talked about all the young men in the community that had no opportunity, that had no education, that had no jobs, that had no hope. And they said, let's tackle that problem. Let's tackle what's going on with our young people. Let's make sure there's better schools and sports fields, etc. And the men listened because they thought, aha, this is the lived experience of our mothers, of our community leaders. And with those changes, it got better. It got better. So those are just two quick examples, and I can go on and on and on and on about why equality is so incredibly important. It's the right thing to do. Everyone should have the opportunity to participate. But it's absolutely the smart thing to do, and I want to start with that. So despite that, we have so many barriers. So many barriers. And with the men in the room, I just want to pause and note that gender equality is not just about women. In fact, it's not at all. It's about all of us, and I want you to understand this. When we shine the light on any one area, we're looking at barriers and lifting barriers so that everyone in our society can reach their full potential. And when we look at any one area from a gender perspective, we will see there's barriers for women, and often more, and girls, but there's also barriers for men. I want to take mental health, for example. In my country, and in many countries, there are greater barriers because of these gender norms. Man up, don't be such a sissy. Real men don't cry. There's barriers for men accessing mental health services that are greater for barriers than women in that space. And in my country, and many others, the suicide rate of men is much higher. So we need to lift those barriers. So this is about lifting barriers for everyone. But when we talk about lifting barriers for women and girls, let me share some of those barriers that are common from my experience as ambassador in every single country I have traveled to. And I've done 50 country visits in this role in the last 18 months. Here's barrier number one. We have these social norms. In every single country, there are these social norms that I just mentioned, and they go a bit like this. Men take charge, women take care. And when we change those norms, men take charge, men take care, women take charge, we often become uncomfortable. When women lead in, when they become aggressive, when they're at the table, when men cry, when they're caring, we don't necessarily trust them. We were talking about this earlier in terms of politics. We expect our men to be leaders. And our democracies may not want to vote women in because we're not comfortable with that. So these social norms can be barriers for women, and it's common right throughout the world. Second one related to that is women take care. What happens when a woman wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning and she's the one expected to get the kids ready for school or to make sure they're fed, to make sure that the nappies are changed, to make sure the water's on the table, the water's hauled in, to make sure the food's on the table, to take care of the house all day, to pick the kids up from school, to make sure they've done their homework, to put them to bed at night, to collapse into bed herself and wake up and do it again and again and again and again. You think about it. If there was a job advert, you picked up the paper and there's a job advertisement, it said, this job, we're looking for a maid, we're looking for a nurse, we're looking for a doctor, we're looking for a driver, we're looking for a cleaner, we're looking for a psychologist. And by the way, there's no pay. And by the way, there's no holidays. And by the way, you might face some stigma and discrimination. Would you apply for it? Mm-mm. But that's what we expect from our women, right? So there's the care burden, which is an issue. And then the third shared burden, the barrier that all women face all around the world is violence. We disproportionately experience violence in a way that men and boys, and my example of running is just one, and men experience violence too, but disproportionately affects women. And for women to get to work, for women to participate in parliaments, think about it. You have to be safe at home, because if you are worried about your life or being harmed or your children, how do you focus? How do you focus in the same way? How do you stay and have the energy and the space to really do your best? And many, many, many women pull it off, but it's harder, right? It's a barrier. We often have violence getting to work. In some countries, in PNG where I work, in Mexico where I just recently visited, 95% of women experience violence on public transport. Not good. So getting to work's hard. Being at work or being in parliaments can be hard too, because we disproportionately experience sexual harassment, for example. And if that's not hard enough, women, much more than men in public spaces, are experiencing technology-facilitated violence, where technology is targeted to them to bring women down and push them out of public spaces and affect our democracy. So all of these barriers are shared all across the world, and then we have specific barriers in specific countries. So we have to lift these barriers. So I have a few messages I'm going to end with, because my 2 minutes is coming up. Message number one: if you're a man in this room, note, gender equality is essential to make your world a better place. And the second thing I want to say to you, if you're a man in this room, we absolutely 100% need you. Women cannot do this alone. I can tell you, I travel all over the world. I used to be in the resource sector, and I used to go to conferences, and I'd look around and say, where are the women in the audience? Where are the women? Where are the women? And I'd fill in on the panels, where are the women speakers? In this role, I find myself quite often, where are the men? Where are the men? Where are the men? We need you, and by you participating, you're going to be better off. Your children are going to be better off. Your families are going to be better off. Your company is going to be better off. Your parliament's going to be better off. It makes a difference to ensure there's that diversity. It's not she wins, he loses. It's everyone wins.
Anyway, thank you, Ambassador, for that very inspiring presentation. Like I said, I feel I don't have anything to say, so thank you very much. Oh, sorry. British High Commissioner, Your Excellency Thomas Coward, the Australia's Ambassador for Gender Equality. We also have distinguished guests from the Australian High Commission here, as well as the Westminster Foundation parliamentary expert, Dr. Victoria, here with us, and all protocol observed. We're so appreciative of Dr. Patricia Roddy, the Dean of the Education and Humanity, SINU, for giving her time up to be here, controlling us this afternoon, and Ms. Lanell to be part of our panel today, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As you all know, I'm new in politics, but it has been a journey. tried back in 2014. I didn't manage. I think I came third. As well in 2018, we tried, we came second. And to be honest, I had given up. And my family was also behind the idea, Mom, just give it up. There's nothing there for you. And I kind of think, if I was thinking about myself, yeah, those statements are correct. But I'm thinking of the people out there. They're the ones who push me to be in the politics arena. This is not about myself. Anyway, I respected them, so I said, okay, this time I won't try again. But up to nearing campaign time this year, pressure was coming again from the people in our constituency. Not only them, it was also coming from the church leaders around here as well. So I tell them, pray about it. And when the day come for me to start preparing for our campaign, they rang and I was still undecided. So they said to me, all these years you've been telling us, pray about it, and we have been praying about it. It looks like you're the one who's not responding to our prayers. So that really caught me. Okay, I'll be obedient again this time, but this will be the last time. If we don't make it, I think we'll just call it a day. But we managed to come through. So, so third time lucky, they call it. So for me, it's been a journey. Politics, it's been a journey for me. As you know, Solomon politics, your pocket must full up, yeah. After the campaigns, pocket there break it too. so that's the Solomon politics. I don't know about other countries, but this is Solomon politics. And so it's a lot of challenge for all of us who come to try and run for politics in this country, because it means we really need huge resources to support us during our campaigns. And to be in this position in politics, when you expect to do things in the way that you think from a business perspective, being a person running private business and coming into politics, there are things that you have to agree to, Like in business, everything, you don't just pay money left and right, There has to be a reason for it. In politics, it's different. So it's kind of teaching me to draw the line. Where do I say yes and where do I say no? Fortunately, we have this new CDF Act 2023, where the Member of Parliament is free from making all that personal decisions on how to spend money. You have your constituency officers to assist you there, and also some public officers from the MRD to assist in that arena. So I don't face a lot of challenges in that area, and I'm glad this CDF Act 2023 came into implementation during the time that I come in. Um, why did I choose to come in? I think I've explained that along the way. The idea started when I went to manage this shipping company that belonged to the people of Isabel, the IDC shipping company. That shipping company is owned by people in Isabel in terms of shareholding, ordinary people. And so it was going through some difficulties, financial and management difficulties. And I came in 2010. And along the way, I managed to refloat it, and we managed to buy 2 vessels during my 4 years there. So I think this is just my suspicion and my thought. They must have thought, well, if she can do well there, I'm sure she can do well in the public political life, yeah? Assisting people, because at the shipping company was belonging to general public in Isabel. So they must have thought, if she can do it there, I'm sure she can do it in politics. So that's probably why they were pushing me to go into politics back then, 2014. So I did not want to disappoint them, so I said, okay, we'll try. So that's how we tried back in 2014. And the responsibility of being a politician, I used to say, of course, we women, as mothers, we are very good in the kitchen. That's why we feed you. As husbands and children, we feed you well. But it doesn't mean that's the only thing we are good at. We are also good at looking after you as fathers and kids too. So if we can look after you like we do at home, I'm sure we can look after you as a nation, as a constituency. So that was my point during my campaign. It's true, and especially in Isabel, we have this society where women own the land. Women inherit the clan. And yet, guess what? Men makes the decisions. So a lot of logging happening, a lot of mining is still going, yeah? I'm making a noise in parliament about the mining. Because I'm a woman, but no one is listening because the men are the one who's signing this agreement and giving away all this land to mine and logging. So I feel for our women. I grew up having to listen to men as leaders. Sometimes as a little girl, I don't agree with what they say, but I don't have a choice. I look up to them as our leaders. So I think these are some of the reasons why I decided, okay, I will go with you and try politics. Okay, I see the 2 minutes now, and I think I'll close earlier than the 2 minutes. Yeah. So I hope I said enough in what made me choose politics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Kathy Nori, and I acknowledge your presence, Honorable Member for Parliament for Maringe Kokota constituency, I also acknowledge the presence of Australian Ambassador for Gender Equality, Stephanie Campbell, Dr. Patricia Roddy, Dean of Faculty of Education and Humanities, and thank you so much for availing your time to also facilitate this session this afternoon. I acknowledge the presence of the British High Commissioner to Solomon Islands, His Excellency Thomas Coward, and all protocols observed. Every single woman in Solomon Islands has a special story to tell. A story of hardships, prejudice, silence, abuse, making ends meet, sacrifices, strength, love, compassion, boldness, confidence, and most importantly, leadership. Some say they are born leaders, others, they build their confidence in the environment that they are brought up in. And it shapes them to becoming influential leaders in their own right. I'd say women of Solomon Islands are blessed that despite all that they face in life, most still shine out in their own homes, churches, communities, and nation at large. We do not hear all their success stories because perhaps we focus only on certain areas of leadership. I also stand here today to pay tribute to all the women leaders of Solomon Islands who have gone before us, but have paved the way for many more young women of these happy isles to be seen, heard, and respected. I also pay tribute to women who champion a lot of work in the Ministry of Women, Youth, Children, and Family Affairs and ensure that we thrive to better the lives of our daughters, mothers, and our elderly women in Solomon Islands. And I would acknowledge a lot of them who are sitting here this afternoon. Can we give a round of applause to them? Thank you, ladies. For me personally, when I hear the word gender equality, I ask myself a lot of questions. Specific questions. Why do we work towards gender equality? What good is there for us? For me, it has to be having equal opportunities, for voices to be heard, for influences to be made, and changes to better my country, Solomon Islands. If it works for other countries, for example, Rwanda, why not Solomon Islands? We always acknowledge that in the Solomon Islands, women in leadership face several challenges due to cultural, structural, and societal factors. And I wish to share only a few and how we women can mitigate. And when we talk about cultural barriers and gender stereotypes, we always acknowledge the traditional gender roles in the Solomon Islands and often position men as leaders and decision makers, while women are expected to focus on family and community roles. This bias can lead to a lack of support for women aspiring to be leaders. From my personal experience, I would say that we live in a communal community whereby women can address these barriers by building a good relationship with the community and religious leaders to advocate for inclusivity, and emphasizing the importance of women's unique contributions to societal progress that can gradually change perceptions. And we've heard from Honorable Kathy Norrie. She shared one of the things she believed has also influenced people to vote for her, and now she's a member of parliament. Gender-based discrimination networks that push for policies of inclusion and diversity. And for us women, through solidarity and collective advocacy, we can promote structural change and highlight the value of women's representation in decision-making bodies. One classic example I can share is the recent launch of the Women in Executive Leadership Solomon Islands, WELSI, that aims to support women in leadership positions, breaking those barriers. And I wish to acknowledge the president of WELSI, Ms. Pamela Naisol Alamu, for sharing her visions. This is what we want to see in Solomon Islands for our women. Balancing family and professional responsibilities is also one of the challenges women face, and all mothers will attest to this. Balancing leadership roles with family expectation is difficult, as women are often expected to prioritize family responsibilities. But women in Solomon Islands are resilient, strong, and excellent home managers in multitasking as well. And establishing work-life balance policies, advocating for family-friendly workplace practices, and encouraging community understanding of women's dual roles can help. and delegation of tasks within the family, or creating support systems to manage responsibilities more effectively. So what is my take-home message today? Listening to the two speakers before me, what we need are male champions in our country. Young men who will always work to support women. And Ambassador Stephanie has rightly mentioned, when we talk about gender, sometimes people are put off by the word gender, thinking that it's about women wanting to rise above men. We are all gender, male and female. And we work together collectively to support each other and our voices to be heard. And on a personal note, from my experience of 6 years in politics, it's quite a difficult task for a woman, but I believe that we all, we are Melanesian people, we have our culture, we have a way of life and doing things, but the most important thing is understanding each other and working with each other and to ensure that we achieve our common this, that we have more of our women voices to be heard and in decision making. At the same time, it would be good to also capture stories of mothers in the rural communities to also give strength to other young girls who are growing up to have that confidence in themselves as a daughter of Solomon Islands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we give another big round of applause to our three panelists? Sorry. Thank you very much. So now we hear the stories from our three distinguished panelists. Okay.
Stage, I've noted that there are barriers come and kind of stepped into leadership roles because I wanted to address those barriers. So I think I kind of fell into it at every stage, as opposed to thinking I want to, end up to be in this position and working my way to get there. It's just kind of been a step-by-step process. But I've certainly been inspired by every woman that I meet. I mean, I met a midwife in a rural part of Africa recently who was working in an incredibly difficult setting where she had no running water, no electricity, and she was the only midwife for the village, and she showed up every single day. I just meet, so many people that inspire me day in and day out and also just keep me going.
Thank you, Ambassador. We'll go on to Honorable Kathy.
Hello? We have had a couple of ladies in Parliament. I think the first one was in the Legislative Council, late Lily Poznansky, and also, forgotten the name, Honorable Hilda Kari. Those ladies have really inspired me, but I never thought I would be in politics one day. I mean, if you asked me 12 years ago, I would say, what the? No, I'm not going there. But I am here now. And so, like I said, it's a journey for me.
A lot of people in my life that have inspired me. They saw a lot of potential in me, especially my teachers in high school. But for entering politics, I'd say my husband. He was the one who pushed me to enter politics. And when I was a member of parliament, he continued to encourage me to be brave, to be strong, despite whatever. And he's still my #1 fan.
Thank you very much for those responses. So we can hear from the responses that they have different experiences and different people who inspired us to become leaders. We have our role models. We go through the journey in our career or whatever role we play, and we see that there may be gaps there that somebody ahead of us is not really addressing. So we think that maybe I put my hands up so that I can help address that need. So really, it's the interest of our community, the voice of our community, and the need to address those needs that inspire some of us to become a leader. So, yeah, I ask this question, but I also reflect on it myself. Who or what inspired me or motivated me to step up and become a leader? Thank you so much. Now I will open up to the floor for any questions. So please, as good students, I'd like you to put your hands up. And before you ask your question, you stand up, introduce yourself, and ask your question. Thank you very much. There's a microphone going around.
It's gender equality is quite a sensitive issue, especially because there is a strong connection to culture. Two things, in terms of my observation around gender equality in Solomon Islands. Two things. First, women, they grow up with the culture that they are a second class. So that culture is ingrained in a lot of Solomon Island women. And so around that area needs to happen. And then the second observation, sorry, I'm not sure if it's a question or just a comment. Observation is men, again, because the culture is they are men and they are superior than women. Both women to think that it's not really about women when we talk about gender equality, it's both women and men, and also to educate men to understand and to have more awareness around their responsibility when it comes to gender equality. Sorry, it's not a question. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Eleanor. I'm not sure if any of the panelists would like to make a response, maybe Ambassador Stephanie.
I mean, thank you, and I agree with everything that you said. And again, there's cultural issues in Solomon Islands, but what you point out is an issue that I've seen in every single country, including my own. These norms, the culture, how we're raised from birth. I mean, there's some research I was reading recently which said across the world, in many different cultures that they studied, little girls are held more closely and little boys are jiggled up and, you know, told to take more risk from the very beginning. We tell little girls to play nice and not to get dirty. And we tell, oh, he's just being a boy, right? And we all do that in every culture. And so from when we're babies, we're instilled with these ideas about what girls do, what boys do. And we, as women, build our confidence levels or not, our expectations of how we behave from very small children. And men do the same. So we have to tackle it at all levels. We have to be aware that it's happening in the first place. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm the ambassador for gender equality, right? I was on a plane the other day, and I got on the plane, and it was an airline I don't normally fly, so I was thinking, I'm not sure about this plane, but I get on, and there were all women pilots, and I thought, oh, hooray, this is exciting, all women pilots. Guess what? We got up into the flying around, and the turbulence started really bouncing us around, terrible turbulence. I thought, oh, God, I hope these women can fly this plane. I wish that, I was wanting a man there because I'd been raised to think, oh, of course the women could fly the plane, right? I got back on the ground, I gave myself a talking to, but I had to sit there and reflect that I automatically, when I was scared, I jumped to that kind of, conclusion. It was, real reflection on that. So we have to challenge it at every level on the one hand, and we have to educate. We have to be thinking through, what these issues are. What's that saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? But at the same time, you can't be what you can't see. So we have to work to have, women in these roles and in a critical mass where they can have a voice and they can make a difference. We have to normalize it. When I look at the department I work in, DFAT, for example, when I first started in DFAT, it was in the portfolio many years ago. It was really rare to see women in senior positions. It was really rare to see women as ambassadors. When women got to a certain level, they just dropped off. And so we expected our men to be in those roles. But when we put in place a strategy to start changing that, there's now, my son, this tells how old I am, my son was working in DFAT portfolio as well, and he had a situation where he was down at the bottom of the pecking order, but his immediate boss was a woman, her boss was a woman, her boss was a woman, her boss was a woman, and her boss was a woman, all the way to the minister, right? And that just started to normalize it for him, that women are in these roles. He didn't even think about it anymore. So we have to keep at it to just normalize these situations, and that women see that as well as men, because it's not just men, it's what we put up with. I look at it in the violence space. I work a lot on violence against women. And as young women, if we see our mothers, experience violence at home by our fathers, then when our husbands do it to us, we don't question that so much, and when men, see their fathers doing that, they don't question. So we have to break the cycle, and you can't be what you can't see. And it.
Hukum Compass. I think it's amazing to see our leaders up there, and I think it inspires us. I think there are some things that since we have government and our partners here, I think we just pose we started debate just surrounding I think most thinking around gender issue here in Solomon always premises culture. And when I look at the culture more deeply, I don't think that our cultural decision making are therefore discriminatory. I think our resolution, conflict resolutions, and our practices are therefore gender balanced or gender based. I think what I see is the setting to which development prospers in these different settings. We talk about institutions. For example, when we talk about Solomon Island government and the law touches the only 15% of the nation. while most of the lands in Solomons are customary, which have their own economic systems, their own tribal laws, and a culture that determines these different institutions. So when we talk about gender issues, and we do have legislative actions, what about the 80% of the rural areas? When they are managed by an economy that is driven by customary land tenure system. You have arranged marriage because of that's the way those institutions manage limited resources. That's how food is being distributed and redistributed in those settings. And in most of those settings, most of our laws don't even touch them. Our House of Chiefs don't have gender-based programs or that helps them or see or understand how gender issues are really played at the village-based level. And when you look at Western countries or you talk about other countries, the laws are clearly defined into the household. What is private and what is public. We have a system where Honiara has almost have its own laws because of the modern state. And then we do have the customary land tenure system, which we still worried about who are we going to marry. Because that's how you inherited land. That's how you organize. So how are we going to really translate development policies? How do we really touch these different economic systems and structures and institutions within these different systems? Thank you.
Thank you, Derek, for your comments. Panelists, would you like to respond to that? But I would like to say that, yeah, that's a challenge, and that's the reality for Solomon Islands. For those of us who come from the matrilineal society, like Isabel and Guadalcanal, where, we have to marry our first cousins. Like me and Kathy, we should marry our uncle's sons in order to continue with the inheritance of land. I mean, that's the reality, which is really taboo in other cultures, patrilineal cultures, yeah? A society in the Solomons. But that's the reality, and yeah, I have a lot of stories to say about this one because, yeah, I broke the rule. I did not want to, yeah. Yeah. People are listening, so I don't want to say anything, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Derek and me are from Isabel, all of Bitwala from Isabel, and that, I mean, it's true. The island, Isabel, I think 80 or 90% is unregistered, yeah? Still under customary land system. So developing it is an issue. And so that's probably why challenge when trying to develop unregistered land. So I believe the Commission of Land is trying to do registration of lands areas in Isabel and other islands that are mostly unregistered. But the concerns raised by Dr. Derek are really true, especially in matrilineal system, like Isabel, Guadalcanal, and I think Gela, West too. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? I can see 2 hands at the back.
That's worked for me, and I think they'll make compromises, family compromises at each stage of my career, because my husband's also been a very busy job and role, and he's had a job where he's been posted overseas. I've had a job when I've been posted overseas. When he goes overseas, no one questions it. When I would go overseas, what's she doing? What about the kids? Why is she not home taking care of her husband? why she not, what's he going to do? Like, he's in this job, he needs her to be doing the entertaining or cooking the dinners, right? At every single stage, society judged me and they celebrated him, right? So I had to make sacrifices, but I also had to go with a bit of that stigma and judgment and knowing that was happening and push ahead anyway. So that's one of many challenges.
Thank you. Maybe I would just like to thank Dr. Derek for raising that very important question, and also surrounding the thought of the laws in our country. And when we talk about gender equality, I think we have a long way to go, but I'm so excited. There are some women here, Peony and the ladies here from National Council of Women and RAM. They're championing TSM at the moment, and I see that that's a breakthrough for us. If we're wanting to go further when we talk about gender equality and representation of women in decision-making places, we need to create laws and policies that makes up laws to ensure that our women are heard. Not that they are not heard, but their voices are heard in a wider space. So that's something that our country and under GNAT we're working on, and we're hopeful, very hopeful that it will soon come to its fruition. I think with regards to the question that is asked in relation to challenges, I had two experiences. When I was a teacher, the nominating committee wanted to put me as a school principal in one of the senior schools in our church organization, and they were sitting in this boardroom and discussing my name, and this is one comment that came: is she brave? Can she handle people that come into the school to challenge the school with regards to land and boundaries? Is she brave enough to do that? So that's one of the thinking about women in terms of holding leadership position. Also, I had another experience where they wanted me to nominate me to one of the senior positions, and the question is she going to be able to face this, calling certain names? She might not be able to face certain individuals. They can ridicule her and belittle her, and so she might not have that confidence to speak to this man. So these are some of the, I would say, stereotype of thinking that limits women's potential to rise above. But I believe I have so much hope in the younger generations, especially our young men, that they will see the way forward, that we continue to support and encourage each other, especially our young women, for the future of Solomon Islands. Thank you.
The question from Madam Takona there. And along the ambassador's response, and this is from my personal experience. The challenges for me is actually trying to find the time for my family, because I'm running everywhere, trying to do everything else, and my family is left back home. So I think just finding the time, but you have to do it. I mean, as a mother, I know what's my responsibility back home. I have to go home, cookie, wasi. I mean, just because you are an honorable member doesn't mean you don't do those things. They are still yours. It's, for me, it's just a voice for my people. I don't automatically become the boss. In the family, my husband is still the boss. I still have to cook. I still have to sweep the house. I still have to wash. I mean, so what? I'm good at it. So yeah. I think this what do I say? That once women become in power, they become the boss. I think that one, it's for me, it's not right. It's a wrong perspective. Yes, you have authority to act and to, but it doesn't mean you are the boss. In the home, you are the mother. You still do what, as a mother at home, and that's what I do. And so, I think that's one of the challenges that I face. Yeah? Time to actually spend at home as I used to, opposed to now. But we can always do it. Yeah, make up time always. To make time up for your family. Thank you.
I was just thinking of one more thing to add on this point, and that is there are these expectations that a perfect worker is first in and the last to leave, right? And expectations at the same time that a perfect mother is home with her children, taking care of them all the time. So we're constantly judged by society, and we're constantly judging ourselves, feeling guilty about it. That's the curse, I think.
Thank you very much for that very good response. Unfortunately, Tasman said to me that will be the last question. Time is catching up on us. All of us have something to go back to. So unfortunately, we'll take that as the last question. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank our panelists for sharing with us their journey, experience, and challenges to taking up their leadership roles. And I believe we have learned something from their presentations, and we have our own take-home messages from their presentations, yeah? So from the presentations today, I believe we can all agree that leadership is indeed a shared responsibility and must be gender participatory at all levels of governance, in our workplaces, communities, and societies. There are challenges, there are barriers that we have shared and heard from our panelists and also from those who raised comments and questions. But I believe we need to navigate in order to be able to support women to take on leadership roles for the very reason that Ambassador Stephanie mentioned to us, that gender equality is to make our place a better place to live. Involving women in leadership is very important. It is not only for women and girls that women should take on leadership roles, but it is for the whole society. It is for both gender, men, women, families, communities, and society. Having more women in political leadership delivers progress in policy areas. And we are happy to hear Lanelle, a former member of parliament now working in the PM's office in the policy, that there are policies coming up to support women in leadership, in political leadership, and policy areas that are vital for economic growth and development. Women, we hear this message all over again and from all three panelists, that women need the support of men and all of us around them to face or to take on leadership roles and to address the challenges and barriers that we have heard. And I would like to say, even without the results that we've heard, the argument for women's empowerment is irrefutable. Democracy cannot afford for half of the population not to be wholly and equally engaged in decision-making process. It means we have to give equal opportunity for both the genders to participate in leadership. Ideally, we would like to see women equally participating in leadership roles in all spheres of a society. The shared leadership theory is rooted in the belief that effective leadership is not the sole responsibility of a single individual or gender, but rather a collaborative effort It recognizes that every team member possesses unique skills, perspectives, and expertise that can contribute to the overall success of an organization or community. So just reflecting back to the Solomon Islands, although the number of women holding leadership roles seem to be increasing over the years, in the various sectors of our society, 5 women out of 173 taking on those CEO roles, And here at SINU, I was just like reflecting and said, how many women do we have? So I said, in the senior management, there's only 2 out of about, just less than 20 in total in the senior management. Deans, VC, provices, directors, and managers. Only 2 women, 1 dean and 1 director, HR. So we need more women there. So there is indeed a need to leverage women participation in leadership roles at all levels in a society. We need to address the barriers that we talked about. It's quite tricky, addressing culture as a barrier, to the matrilineal society. It's very tricky. Like me and Kathy, we are regarded as our children and us are the owners of the land, but decisions are made by the men. The men are the chiefs, and they make the decision on behalf. And that's a challenge that we will continue to face until such a time they will give us equal opportunity to make the decision here. And I think we need to start now if we want to involve in political leadership in Solomon Islands. 2028 is not far, ladies. If we want to prepare, we have to start right now preparing for that. And I think I might take away a message from the 3 participants. Message: gender equality is to make our place a better world. Men need to support women. Women need to speak louder and speak more often. We need the support of our people and community to become leaders, representing them. We need to work together. Even women need to work together to support each other, to take up leadership roles at work, in our community, and in politics. So with those few remarks, thank you very much, everyone. And let's give our 3 panelists a big round of applause.